After publishing more than 200 travel videos, there's one question which I get asked over and over again, and this is: which camera equipment do you use? So in this video I'm talking all things camera gear and equipment which I'm using in order to produce all these videos from around the world. Before we start, I want to point out that I'm using Sony cameras for more than 5 years now in order to capture my travel experiences. In fact, I actually started with the Sony NEX5N. So for me, when Sony reached out to me 2 weeks ago and asked me if we want to partner up, it was just a natural fit. And this is why this video is sponsored by Sony. Let's start with the cameras. After using that little guy here, I switched over to the Sony Alpha 7S Mark II, and I use it now for almost 4 years because this is just a total beast. It is a full frame camera which shoots 4K internally, and as you can see actually from the scratches on the lens, I have used this camera in a lot of places in really harsh conditions, and it is a true champion. So most of the videos you can see on my channel today, be it the Patagonia expedition, be it videos from Finland, and everything until now, Kilimanjaro, they were all filmed mainly on this camera. I have now here a 16 to 35mm lens from Zeiss. It is always depending on what I'm filming. This is a wide angle lens, so I'm using that when I'm filming myself or when I'm filming in cities. But recently in the series from Iceland, Colombia and Kilimanjaro, I was using more and more this lens. This is a 24 to 240mm lens, which gives me a much wider range and much more possibilities in matters of imagery. So yeah, using the Sony Alpha 7S Mark II mainly for B-roll footage, for nice cinematography, and also for photographs, which you can see on my Instagram channel. My other main camera is the Sony RX100, which can also shoot 4K and does beautiful video footage, but if you see that, it's way smaller, way lighter. So this is usually what I bring when I can't bring the big guy, or in places where I want to look less suspicious when filming. This is also why I got this camera actually in the first place, because I bought it just before my Iran trip, and I ended up filming more than 90% of my Iran video series on this camera, and I loved it because you can tilt the screen so you can film yourself and you can see yourself on the screen, which you can unfortunately not here. The screen doesn't tilt all the way. This is why I use it more and more for the vlog parts of my videos. But also the stabilization in this camera is great, and it's just so versatile. And now here in my hands I have the Mark VI. In the Mark V you had a lens which went from 24 to 70mm, and now with the latest edition you can go from 24 to 200mm, which makes it even more versatile. Now it also has a touch screen, which is really handy when you film and you want to focus on something. You can just simply touch on the screen, and also the screen now tilts all the way down here, so you can film your food, for example. Great, versatile camera. I love it and I use it more and more. Next up, also 4K camera, is the GoPro, which I actually use when things get messy. So when I'm getting into the water, when I'm on a bike, driving in the car as well, this is why I use this camera. It is waterproof, very durable, and with the several mounts which I have for the camera, which I talk about later, I can use it in all situations where there's action involved. So I used it, for example, for tubing in Colombia or for skiing in the Alps. Great camera for all things action related. In 2015 I bought the DJI Phantom 3 Professional, and I still have it. I never had major incidents with this drone because I also learned how to fly it. I was out on the field to learn it, and then I took it on many trips in order to get beautiful aerial footage, but I tend to use it less and less because for traveling it's not as handy. I mean, I have an extra backpack for that, this Manfrotto bag here, which I'm now using as a camera backpack, but this is actually a drone backpack. In order to get the drone in there, to get the remote control and the batteries in there as well. Now, my latest trip with friends, I actually used the Mavic 2, and this would also be my recommendation in matters of aerial footage. In order to get stable footage while on the road, I use a GorillaPod, which is way lighter and smaller than a normal tripod, and it's a lot more flexible because I can put it on a tree or on a bench. So this is perfect when you need to pack light, especially for camping trips or outdoor hikes. For example, like I did it in Kilimanjaro, this is what I use. I also have a tripod actually for my RX100. This is this little foldable one, which does a really good job. I used it also on Kilimanjaro when I was filming in the camps. When I'm in need of smooth follow footage, I actually use this battery powered camera crane stabilizer from Chiun, I guess it's the name, for the RX100, and I put the RX100 and I get really smooth, stable shots. It's pretty heavy though, so I'm not taking it everywhere. For the GoPro, I use several mounts. First of all, of course, a helmet mount for all things when I'm doing like biking or skiing. This is really handy. Then when I'm in the water, I'm using this device because it can actually float, and I can also secure it on my wrist. And on top of that, it actually has a little compartment where you can put in money. Another little gadget I can't live without anymore, especially on outdoor trips, is the Peak Design clip, which you put on the strap of your backpack. This way you have the camera here and you don't need to put it into the backpack, or you have it hanging here and it's always in the way. Here you can just like clip it in and clip it out as you need it, and the good thing is the clip or the mount you have goes actually also on the GorillaPod. So this is a super nice gadget when you're outdoors. Highly recommended. Besides stable footage, it is important to have good sound. Especially when you're outdoors, you have to deal with a lot of wind noises. So you need to protect your microphones from the wind. With the Sony cameras I'm using, the microphones are in weird positions, so it's a little bit tricky. But there is a solution. I actually bought these things here, they're called micro muffs. I cut them in half, and here on the Sony a7S II, the microphones are on the side up here. So I cut them in half, used super glue to glue it around the microphone, so you need to be really careful with that on both sides. And then I can just put this wind protector on it when I need it. And this is an okay solution when I'm filming normal situations. But when I'm hosting or when I'm doing interviews, I'm using the Rode Video Micro, which I can put on here, and then I can plug it in. There's a line in here on the side, and then the sound is way better. I have a similar solution actually for the RX100. Unfortunately, I can't plug in an external microphone, but also here I use these micro muffs in order to have wind protection. I haven't done it yet on my Mark 6, I have it on the Mark 5, which I'm using to film this video. But here you can do the same thing. You glue it here, you cut it a little bit so that you can still use the viewfinder here. And then you can put the micro muffs also here on top of the camera, and you have wind protection for those situations. Let's talk about a few additional items I'm using. First of all, I recommend getting a little lens protector cap for the Sony RX100 in order to protect this little part here. For the big camera and the lenses you're using, I highly recommend getting some filters. For example, some ND filters in order to get nice photos from waterfalls, for example, some good long exposure shots. Then I also recommend getting a polarizer for your camera when you have to deal with harsh light conditions. For example, I use that one when I'm in the snow, for example, when I was in Greenland. Then of course you shouldn't forget a cleaning kit. So I have that guy to blow out the dust from the lens, for example when I was in Kilimanjaro, really dusty. Then a lens pan, which is always nice and handy to have in order to clean your lens. And microfiber cloths. On top of that, of course, all things you need in order to charge your stuff, which means you need to get a power adapter when traveling around the world. You can just use the ones you need. Of course, charging cables, extra batteries, a lot of them. Then a power bank. I bought this solar power bank, so I can charge a little bit of this power bank with solar power, which is great when you're hiking. Additionally, of course, a set of SD cards and a waterproof SD card holder. Alright, this is all the gear I'm using in order to create my travel videos. You can find a full list on my blog. And next Thursday, I will be taking you to Greenland. See you next week.